Hey guys, I thought that I might, since you do have the option to do a formal poem for your poetry packet, I thought I would give you a little bit of instruction on at least one traditional poetry form. I would have done a lot more of this had we not had to go virtually. But I thought I might talk to you a little bit about writing the sonnet. Now, please remember that if you're going to do a formal poem of any kind, that it has to follow all the conventions of the form, or at least some of the conventions of the form, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Um, but it must follow all of the conventions of good writing. I mean, that is the most important thing. I do not want you advantaging or sort of deciding that the most important thing in your poem is whether or not you make the rhyme scheme, or if you're writing a sestina, that all the words come back up in exactly the same places. That's not what's most important. Those are the conventions of a form. But in the end, like I've said before, characters need to be developed, scenes need to be constructed, the language needs to be charged, the imagery needs to be evocative, and it needs to be full of the stuff of life. Do not send me abstract ideas that rhyme. I will not like them, and I will tell you so, because that's anti-poetry. Those are Hallmark cards. All right, so here's what I'm going to do is go through this particular form, though, to give you an option, because sometimes you're struggling with something that you're writing. Thinking about it from a formal point of view is helpful. Years ago, I made this uh, this PowerPoint, if it'll come up, right, on writing the contemporary sonnet. Okay, this was multimedia at the time. The audio doesn't work anymore. So I thought I just might walk you through it here on Zoom. All right, so there are two main types of sonnets. There are many different variations, but these are the two that we're going to focus on today, is the Petrarchan and the Shakespearean sonnet. Okay, the rules of all sonnets or some of the basic sort of parameters are, they are normally 14 lines in length. If in English they are written in iambic pentameter, they have some kind of alternating rhyme scheme. There is a turn or a volta in the poem indicating a change in subject matter. All right, so those are your basics. And we'll get back to some of those words like iambic pentameter in a second. The Petrarchan sonnet is divided into two sections by two different groups of rhyming sounds. The first 8 lines is called an octave, which is in the word. It has a very structured rhyme scheme, A, B, B, A, B, B, A. Now, when you look at those A, B, B, A, B, B, A, so if the end of the first line is sun, and that comes up again as one, and then fun, and then the final one, say it's a variation on it, and it's like thrum or something. That's where the A comes. B, 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 all of those letters indicate a new rhyming word. So when you move on to C, D, C, D, C, D in the sestet, the final 6 lines, the C indicates a new rhyme that then comes up again. So you can see how this particular rhyme scheme functions. And again, these are parameters. If you want to write a Petrarchan sonnet, that's the form. The poem is divided into 2 sections by 2 differing rhyme groups. A change in rhyme scheme signifies a change in purpose or direction, and this turn is called the volta, which just means turn. Here's an example of a very famous sonnet called What Lips My Lips Have Kissed and Where and When. There will be, I think the link for this will still work, so I'm going to make sure that link is available. You'll be able to see this entire PowerPoint because it's going to be posted as an announcement along with this video. So if you want to just thumb through this yourself, you certainly can. But I'll read this right now, and this is by a very underappreciated 20th century poet, Edna St. Vincent Millay. What lips my lips have kissed, and where and why, I have forgotten, and what arms have lain under my head till morning. But the rain is full of ghosts tonight that tap and sigh upon the glass and listen for reply. And in my heart there stirs a quiet pain for unremembered lads that not again will turn to me at midnight with a cry. Thus, In winter stands the lonely tree, nor knows what birds have vanished one by one, yet knows its boughs more silent than before. I cannot say what loves have come and gone. I only know that summer sang in me a little while, that in me sings no more. This is a highly metaphorical poem. The tree represents the abandoned lover. The birds are in this case the boys that she has known and lost. But there's some beautiful lines in terms of sound. There's a lot of sonic play. There's a lot of imagery. This would, of course, get an A. Maybe gets a little bit archaic in language, but this was written at the beginning of the century. So nor knows what birds have vanished one by one. I would tell you to stop speaking like Yoda there because of the archaic inversion that's going on, and nor knows. But overall, it is quite a poem. All right, the Shakespearean sonnet is actually a lot more common in English, and of course, part of that is it was written by an Englishman, Shakespeare. Consists of 3 quatrains of alternating rhyme and a couplet at the end, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, G, G. The volta, or turn, can occur anywhere after the 7th line, so he's got a little more freedom happening here. This is very famous. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? You can listen to an audio link of Gilmore from Pink Floyd singing it. It's very dramatic and over the top, kind of unintentionally funny in places, but worth a listen. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and gives life to thee. And this gives life to thee. Butchered the ending there. But one thing I would tell you not to do is to use thou or grossed or things like that. Use contemporary idiom. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But obviously, you can see the abundance of imagery here, metaphor, play with sound, and some really, lovely thinking. So you never get the sense that any of these lines are written just to get to the rhyme at the end. They're full of all sorts of interesting things that are going on. Contemporary spit. So you're a contemporary poet. So I don't really want you writing like Shakespeare, or Edna St. Vincent Millay, or Edgar Allan Poe, or anybody like that. I want you writing like a person who has grown up in the last, in this century, or the latter half of the last century. Contemporary poets who wrote in writing form have allowed themselves a great deal of freedom to play with the conventions of the traditional sonnet. Some techniques use different kinds of rhyme. Vowel rhymes, consonant rhymes, near rhymes, slant rhyme. All that means is a vowel rhymes means the 2 words that you're rhyming share the same vowel sound, like height and fly. Those words can technically rhyme. It's called a vowel rhyme. Consonant rhymes are a little less easy to hear, but like slit and dot technically rhyme because they are consonant rhymes. Near rhymes, slant rhyme, etc. Break free of strict pentameter. Now, iambic pentameter is a way of looking at it's a counting of the stresses and the rise and fall of the language. So if you think of Robert Frost stopping by woods on a snowy evening, that poem goes, whose woods these are, I think I know, his house is in the village, though. You'll notice that there is unstressed stressed, whose woods these are, I think I know. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. Actually, that's not iambic pentameter. That is iambic, oh my goodness. I am forgetting it right now. This is tetrameter, sorry. It's iambic tetrameter, which is a 4-stress line. But that's a highly iambic line. so you can break away from that, or you can not use it at all. So coming up with a looser interpretation of iambic rhythm, allowing for multiple rhyme schemes throughout, maybe just make sure that every rhyme has a match, and using radical enjambment to de-emphasize the rhyme. Radical enjambment, it just means breaking a line at an odd place in the sentence so the line carries onto the next line. So it would not, so you don't want all of your lines in any poem ending on punctuation because it just emphasizes the rhyme. Let me see here. Generally speaking, writers of contemporary sonnets attempt to write in the speech patterns that reflect the language and rhythms of contemporary life, achieving a tension between form and freedom. In other words, they play with the box, as that kid is playing with the box in the picture. Form is not and should never be a prison. Here's a great example of a very successful contemporary sonnet by Seamus Heaney. When all the others were away at mass, I was all hers as we peeled potatoes. They broke the silence, let fall one by one, like solder weeping off the soldering iron. Cold comfort set between us, things to share, gleaming in a bucket of clean water, and again let fall, little pleasant splashes from each other's work would bring us to our senses. So while the parish priests at her bedside went hammer and tongs at the prayers for the dying, and some were responding and some crying, I remembered her head bent towards my head, her breath in mine, our fluent dipping knives, never closer the whole rest of our lives. You can see many places where he's playing around with both the rhyme scheme, the rhyme pattern. If you look, he does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He does have an octave followed by a sestet, but he's not worrying about the Petrarchan, rhyme scheme at all. In fact, he's rhyming mass with potatoes and one with iron and share with water and splashes with senses. You can see how every one of those plays with the sounds of the rhyme that it's matching, but it's in a very free way. It's not till the very end of the poem you have very tight, simple rhymes like dying and crying and knives and lives. But even in that stanza, you've got beside rhymed with head, which is a consonant rhyme. So you can see where he's playing with and expanding our conception of rhyme to allow for a looser sense and allow him to do more within the line itself. And you'll notice that there is not a single line here, well, except for maybe the very first one that doesn't have a very vibrant image in it. So make sure you maintain your imagery as you play with the form. What matters in the end is that the form serves the poem and not the other way around. For further reading, take a look at a manifesto on the contemporary sonnet by Tony Barnstone. Again, you'll have to go to the PowerPoint link that's matched with this to be able to click on that link. Hopefully it'll come up. If you look at it, if it doesn't, look it up in your Google search and it will come up there. That's it. Hopefully this has been useful to you if you're interested in writing a formal poem. Take a shot at writing a sonnet. It has been an enduring form and has lasted a very long time, and many great poets have used it. So give it a shot, see what it does for you.